Okay, so we wanted to share with you this concept that we have in our life, that we navigate our lives through. And we're constantly adapting to with this and making sure that we're staying in integrity, in congruency with our values, our thoughts, how we live our life. And is it Paul Chek that calls it story gap?
Mhm.
Yeah, so Paul Chek calls it
I'm not sure where you got it from, if it was like Carl Jung or maybe a
so.
psychologist.
But regardless of what you want to call it, I've heard it as just being congruent and using or living your life in congruency where you're not thinking one thing and acting a different way, mostly to people please, I think, is like
I
the
think it
main.
probably comes up in a lot of ways. So story gap is the term that's used, and if we're imagine it, so a good metaphor for this, I guess, would be, the person, the religious leader who is holier than thou and puts on this show of they're super holy and religious, and then behind closed doors, you know they're a crazy freak, and they like to get spanked or tied up, or they play this pure person on the outside, but on the inside they're actually this whole other person.
Another good example would be when you meet someone for the first time, just say you're living together, and then you meet someone, you picture this, they're playing this persona essentially.
And we
Meet
all
them,
do it.
we all do it for
Paul
sure.
Paul Chek talks about this, is like you put on your best face, and you get rid of all of your faults and
Yeah.
your triggers, and like, hey, like, like I'm super like spiritual and healthy person, and
But
like,
then, okay, so then what I was gonna say though is then you move in with this person, right? And you start living with the person, and then that story gap like inevitably falls apart
because
because
it might be 3 weeks, it might be 3 months, it
yeah,
might be 3 years, but eventually your guard's gonna lower down and your true self's gonna come out. And I think a lot of people see this in relationships and marriages and stuff, is you start out this one way, and then as you get more comfortable and like the mask comes off, and then it's like, you're taking out the trash every week, and then like 3 months in, and you're not taking out the trash, or like maybe you're like, oh, I'll help with the dishes every night, and she'll see how like amazing I am, and then now you're not doing the dishes, now you're not doing it, and you're just like, the dude's playing video games all the time, and she's like, this is not who I married, or this is not what I met, because they're playing this persona, or this story gap gets created. And I think a good way to drive this home, because there's so many different um, archetypes, and we can reference, and we'll probably go back and keep referencing different examples, but if someone's trying to display this lifestyle, this life that they have, but it's not congruent, like you said, eventually what can happen is it can creep up and cause sickness, mental health problems. Different diseases can arise from them living and acting in this way that's not in accordance with what either they truly are or truly want, or what they're trying to put out there.
Well, another example, I think examples are helpful. So someone dresses a certain way. Let's use like the hippie. So on the outside, when you meet this person, I don't know, if we go extreme, they might have like dreadlocks, tattoos, they're smoking some cannabis, they're just playing it so chill and relaxed.
Bohemian pants,
Cotton pants, yeah, nice and loose and flowy, and they're maybe like in a drum circle, I don't know, playing a guitar or something. But obviously we're exaggerating here. But then when you spend time with them, you realize, oh hey, they're like eating all their food from the grocery store. They have these vices where they're playing video games every night because they love video games, or oh, I don't know,
an example I think Paul would reference is like, so you have this alternative hippie bohemian, hey guys, let's just chill, but then they work in an office.
Oh, there you go. That's a good.
And then in the office, they got the tight tie. It's super strict. They don't let loose. They're not like, hey guys, like let's just chill. It's like, yes, sir, okay, yeah. And then, you know, that's fine. But as this person grows more into this bohemian person or archetype or character, or maybe that's truly them, maybe that's
Yeah.
who they want to be. But then throughout their career and as they advance, because they don't want to, let's say they don't want to lose that job security or the money, and maybe it's like, oh, the money's really good, I don't want, but like, I hate my job, it just sucks and whatever. And maybe they're doing corporate deals, or maybe they're like doing finance or accounting or something, and they started for a certain reason, and now it's not what they love or their passion, or they're evolved into this whole other character here. But Monday to Friday, they're stuck in this bean counting, like, oh, did you get the files done, blah blah, oh yeah, okay, yeah. And they do both well, but eventually this one just starts sucking something out of them, their life force, their essence, or it's in such a so the story gap is they're living two different stories, and there's a gap in between of where these meet.
Mhm.
So this person's going to the 9 to 5, and maybe they're going to the meetings, and they're like, yeah, like, yeah, okay, yeah, like, I'll go out for dinner after, and all, like, oh, like, all the guys are doing this after work, and I don't want to lose my position here, I don't want to like lose this opportunity, so I'm going to go do this thing, even though it's going for drinks with the guys, and the guys like, drinking, but they're all going drink. If I don't drink and the boss is there, maybe I'll lose my chance for promotion. So now they start compromising their values for this position they have.
Yeah.
When really they're like, oh, like, I don't like drinking, I just want to chill and smoke cannabis. I love gardening. I'd rather be a farmer, and like maybe they're learning all about permaculture, or they're like, oh, I just really love like helping people. Maybe they like truly they want to be like a massage therapist or a therapist, or someone who's helping people, but then they're stuck in this bean counter world. And as these two separate further and further and get deeper and deeper, this one, like I said, it's drawing life force from them, and eventually it's going to develop in sickness, and all these could be weird problems that you would never clue into this story gap that you've been living, because you're fighting every impulse, or you're fighting this thing where you're actually being drawn in this other world.
Yeah, and I think there's a distinction here where you're allowed to have different personas. So for me, I have a mom persona for sure. But then when I'm hosting a program for Finding Polaris, it's like I definitely shift into a totally different persona. Another example would be like working out, like that is definitely a whole like shift. But so it's not that you can't be the businessman and the hippie.
No, exactly.
But I think what you spoke to, the distinction is when you don't want to be doing the thing that you're doing.
Well, not maybe yes, no, maybe, because I think that what hit it home for me with what Paul Chek shared was he would see it a lot with like Hollywood actors or athletes, where with a Hollywood actor, let's say at a high level, they're always playing these different characters, and they're always playing these different people that aren't them. And then also being in the public eye, they can't really be themselves, because they have to keep this vision for the public that they're this thing, and you got to keep it clean. You got to, you can't, if they're whatever really into this one thing that's not socially acceptable, or is taboo, you can't let that out. So now you're bottling that in, and then they're playing all these different characters, and then literally to be themselves in front of, I don't know, paparazzi, or in front of like interviews and stuff, they got to play a character again.
Yeah.
And but in the real life, there's person here, but if they go out, they gotta be like, hey, I'm the happy guy from the kids' TV show. And even though they're like, oh, dude, I just want to smoke joints and play video games, but they can't be they can't be that persona. So they're forced to be like, oh, like I'm the good natured guy, like I'm the fun, lovable character that from this TV show, or.
And then there's I hope they don't find out this other part about me, and they're bottling it in. And I think tying into the story gap, there's that, Emily from Free Birth Society, she describes it as this like a full body yes or a full body no, and understanding when you're out of congruency. And you can use this too when you're trying to tap into your intuition. So if you're pretending, like, you'll know if you're in congruency or not if you have the awareness of your body, and how your body's responding to a certain situation. So yeah, there's, we all play different personas, we all have different, roles that we show up, and it's really fun. And I think there is lightness to be creative and change personas as you evolve. But as soon as one comes up and it's like, actually, that doesn't feel like it's in alignment with who I am at this moment in time, that's when, to me, it's like the red flag of like, hey, I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. I'm communicating in a way. I don't know. There's so many.
So what just popped into my head, so I was thinking, like, let's talk about examples we can touch into ourselves.
Yeah, use yourself.
Example. So here's a good example that has not a lot to do, is more like reference made to the first part we talked about. So I was a automotive mechanic, and every day I'd be going to this job that was just, it was very stressful, but also a lot of toxic exposure. So I was, becoming I don't want to say health and fitness, because like fitness wasn't my big thing, but like the natural health person, like that was the persona I was building, and that's the values I had, is I wanted to take care of my health, but getting constantly exposed to huge levels of toxicity, like someone's grinding brake dust, or I'm grinding these brakes and I'm in a cloud of rusty dust. It's like, it was like, it just like made my soul cringe, but I had to be there to make money to keep going forward. And at the same time, it's like, I'm eating all organic and I'm doing all this stuff, but then I'm, I don't want to say I'm forced, because no one's forcing me. I could have left that job and figured something else out. And I had done it several times, tried leaving the job and trying other jobs, and but that's where the money was for me to support myself. But going to this job where I'm being exposed to toxicity, the mental, emotional, relational dynamics between the dealerships where I worked, it was always like it was a pyramid. Shit always rolled downhill, and in that type of job, you're always constantly under a time pressure thing where you couldn't commit to fully doing your best job for this person's vehicle. And as someone who did grow up with a lot of money and prides himself in his workmanship, a lot of times there was, you had to cut corners. Sometimes you had to do it creatively. Sometimes it was just like, you got to cut a corner. And like, when you want to do your best for these people who are paying to get their car fixed, and you're like, hey, they're just like me, like they're just paying their bills week to week. Like, I want to make sure I do this to the best of my ability, but you're being rushed, and you're on this time, and if you don't go fast enough, you're not making money. And it's just this whole thing is just like eat away at you. And that probably came up as like stress and skin problems and fatigue and all these things that I probably, if I really sat here and meditated on it and thought about it, I probably could write pages of things that came up in my life in the form of disease and sickness due to that, the stress from that job not being a good fit with who I was becoming. And that's just like an example of, it wasn't like I was playing a character. I loved cars. I enjoy fixing cars. It's I enjoy fixing them still on my own terms. I don't want to be forced to do that for my livelihood, just like I don't want to be forced to grow vegetables for my livelihood, but I love gardening. But being in that literal yin and yang duality of like, oh, you got to do this to live, but this is your passion, this is who you're growing and becoming, but all these things over here are just eating away at you. You don't get to do the quality of work you want to do. You're being rushed. There's pressures from above, and relational dynamics and emotional things from that. Like I could think of times where like I was afraid to call in sick when I was sick, because at some of these jobs, your boss would be like, oh, like, really? and like, put this, like, their reply would be like, oh, okay, like, take care of yourself, hope you feel better. It was like you were screwing them over by inconveniencing them with your, sickness.
So if someone's in a story gap, how, like, what are ways? So right now someone's listening and they're like, oh, this might be me. What are ways that someone in a story gap would know that they're in there, that they're doing this, that they're living this?
I think I don't, so I'm going to speak for myself, which I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but I think deep down, and some other examples we might come up with after, maybe they don't know, but I feel like
No,
you
I
have
think
to,
I think people know.
I think deep down, because it's a conscious choice that you're making.
I think it shows up. So when I mean, I think it shows up in anxiety, lack of confidence. I think it shows up, it creates,
okay,
it also creates conflict. And I think if you're in a story gap, you will have more conflict in your life because people will see you in different roles and different shapes and sizes. And they're like, what the heck? I can't trust this person. I think it truly does show up like that. So if you're playing one character in front of your mom and then you play the second character in front of your cousin and then they talk and they're like, oh, what the heck, Jeff says he only eats organic, but then I saw him eating McDonald's 5 times, it's like something like that. And then it creates conflict. People start not trusting you. I think people shy away from you. I think you also become less, you're not confident and you become less willing to like let people into your life because your life is in shambles.
Now that you mention that, the examples I think of people I've known or people I see just looking from the outside, and there's a story gap because details of them. I almost think that it's like and there's different aspects to what exactly this is, but it's like a pre-step to like a schizophrenia.
Because
well, now think you're playing this character. Now you're lying to yourself. Now you're creating.
You lie to others.
You're creating a duality in your mind that gives space for either like a demonic possession or a literal, split in two personalities where now there's two voices or characters in your head. Oh, do I be this person here?
Yeah.
Or do I be this person here?
And I think, okay, so again, how does that show up in your body? I think like literally it can be that simple of like, you'll have a higher heart rate when you're in that state of story gap because you're not calm, you're not centered.
Afraid to get caught.
Your breath probably shortens. You're probably anxious. Like there are, I think, if you feel like this might be you and that you're living that, just notice your body. And again, like it's okay. I mean, I think we've both lived story gaps in different ways. I would say they weren't super extreme, but I think as you age and as you are able to be more comfortable with who you are and who you are, that the need to find those story gaps or to create them, they really go down because you're just
maturing in who you are, and also when you leave the child archetype behind. And I think like so many experts would say the world's plagued with people that are still stuck in the child archetype until they reach the grave.
Yeah.
But definitely I think of, so there's almost categories of it, let's say. So we've got the story gap, and then the levels might come down to, like the spider web, let's say, of different aspects of it. Because I could think of the example I gave with working this job and then, start for this one reason. And this is who I am. And then it grows into this beast, I guess you could say, where now I've committed so much time to it and energy, resources. It's now become my way of making money. And now I've grown into this other person. But then I think there's also a story gap that is like a persona story gap. So it wasn't that I didn't like being a mechanic, or I wouldn't enjoy being mechanic and health person,
Yeah.
you know, it eventually grew that I much rather be doing something with health, but I really don't mind being a mechanic. It just, there's some conflicts with toxicity and stuff like that. But if I could control all those variables and get paid well, I'd probably be okay. I wouldn't get sicknesses and stuff like that. But then there's a persona story gap where and I think this is probably exploded with social media of like, I'm this character, I'm sugar-free Jeff, and I do sugar-free everything. And, then you're playing this character, but then you might see this person outside of this character persona that they put on, and they're doing the opposite of what they preach or the character they put on. And I think that's where you see a lot of examples that we could think of where there's like a persona piece where they're putting a mask on. And I don't know if it's like a coping thing or.
Well, I think social media, that actually came up too while I was listening to. I think it's like you have to be extra cautious nowadays because social media is like whatever 30 to 5 minute clips or whatever. It's recorded, right? It's recorded. So you see the best version, the most put together version of all of these people. And now with filters and freaking voice, like I don't know, you can pretty much, AI can alter everything. And so we're losing the humanity that comes with, a health person, for example, can still have someone who, I don't know, is like preaching women's health, can still deal with acne or eczema. Like that can still show up with someone who's very healthy. But you would just imagine this perfect person if you go on their Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, I don't know, and you just see these pictures and they're all filtered and you're like, wow, this person has beautiful skin. You meet them in real life and it's like, wow, okay, they're normal just like everyone else. But when you see them online, you don't. Or another one that came up for me recently was this woman who really like puts herself out as a very grounded person, and then I heard her voice for the first time, and you can tell someone's state by their voice. And this woman had a very, very high pitched squeaky voice, and to me that was just so jarring based on this persona that she puts herself out on online. And there was like, wow, something's not matching there, which to me is just like, I become really curious about that.
I think, well, I'd like to talk about examples of where we see it in industries where we've been. So, in the outdoors, nature stuff, or with the health and wellness niche, these two niches coming up to find people who are definitely two different personas, where they're this persona where maybe they want to help people and coach people and be this person they aspire to be, but they're like a wreck.
Oh, another good example is the organic farmer who eats Doritos, gets drunk, and watches drag on the weekends. Like that's a massive story gap. And when you see, but then if you see these like a person like this as an example at the market, you would never know that that's their behavior when they're offline or whatever. But I don't know, how do we want to shift? So someone notices.
To go along with that is the story gap will show in their health.
Right, or how you're the embodiment of it.
So the example of that example is those choices and stuff that they're doing versus who they want to display. If say the healthy person is in the center of that, they're getting pulled into the unhealth area, and then their body, their health, their demeanor, like it all reflects. And then the example of like someone playing a persona of a character, like let's say wanting to be the the coach or the leader or the influencer character, and then you talk to them or see them and they're like a nervous crazy wreck, and it's like, oh my god, but the hey guys, I'm here, I'm like gonna coach you, we're gonna everyone, we're gonna do this, and like I'm just showing you, here's a day in my life, I'm getting these supplements, I'm doing this, and then you talk to them and they're like, dude, you're a nervous shaking wreck. It's like you need to fucking like digital detox and go meditate for like a month on a mountain, because you're just like oh, but like they get clap the video together like seamless, looks great. They're like, look, I take care of myself, I do that, like look, I'm leading people, I'm doing these instructionals, I got group coaching and this and that, and then you look at them, you're like, holy crap.
Well,
like,
when you meet them in person, right?
Yeah.
And I think, this is why we love teaching rites of passage, specifically the Vision Quest, because it's an opportunity to really dive deep into this and to know yourself so that you can understand, own your story gaps, and then we have and offer all these tools, and you embody it by lived experience, by going through a rite of passage. On the other side, you get to be more conscious of who you are and change your path. Again, it's all guided by you, but to go back to what you were saying, the embodiment, I think people who are in the story gap, they think that it's not obvious, but when you're looking at someone in a story gap, you can't hide it. Like what you were saying, it's
the example of the actor, like they have to be this persona of their public character, and then also playing characters in these roles, and they can't take that public character role down, because if God forbid anyone sees them in S&M getting spanked by a guy, and it's like, oh, there goes your whole career as you played the family man character publicly or whatever, but perhaps they're homosexual and they're into BDSM, but they got a wife and kids because they're trying to play this persona or this role to further them in their career or what have you. But then that's just not them at all, and it's like, yeah, this is you. Then that's okay if that's you, but you can't like separate them and have this gap in the middle, because something's gonna come up. You're gonna have like a nervous breakdown or like some type of health scare, like a cancer or something's gonna come up.
So I guess wrapping it up. So if someone is noticing that they're in a story gap, they're like, okay, they're becoming more aware of their body signals. Maybe they're getting feedback. If you're open enough, you can definitely reach out to people in your close circles that you trust and be like, and ask people to call you out when they think that you're not in congruence with who you are, or when you just feel like you're faking it. You can go through it. And if you're in a social situation and you're like, oh wow, this is not me, but I'm playing character to get through this social situation.
I think a lot of people do that.
Own it, but then change it, as you go into next time, like, okay, that actually wasn't me. I'm not going to do that again. Because it takes a lot of confidence and self-love, because if you love who you are, you do not have to change.
Now I wonder, like, let's step back from that and get back to that, but what would you, because what we see a lot of is it's in the instructor teacher role where we see people living the story gap, and then that puts people in harm's way, whether it's with bad information that leads to, or they're a false prophet or a fake or a phony, or they're just peddling love and light BS that's not going to help someone. Like, what warning signs can people look out for to spot someone that they're going to be looking up to, because I think example, like martial arts, you don't want to go to somewhere and learn martial arts from a fake or phony person, and then it's time to step up and save someone's life, and you get thrown on your head like a rag doll. Like, you want to, probably less common, but like, you want to vet these people and figure out before you get involved and spend thousands of dollars, or come across like grifters, a word that we've been hearing lately, like someone who's selling some BS, and then you get caught up in it because they do such a good act.
So I mean, let's talk about that. So how are ways? I think one way is meeting the person in person, or if you can't, at least on like a real live call, I think that's super, super key. In person is always going to be best, but nowadays, you know, if you can get on the phone or a Zoom call and just have that real lifeness with them, especially if you're looking to really invest with someone, asking them for reviews is key.
I think asking them questions about like what if scenarios,
Yeah,
that might throw them off, because then, you know,
yeah, they might have a script or that's already
yeah,
planned
yeah.
out.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. This is great. Like my service provides all this, and like, you know, how many times have we heard in the last couple of months people buying multi-thousand-dollar programs or about to buy a multi-thousand-dollar thing, and it's like, wow, this sounds like you just saying it to me. You can almost see like they smell bullshit as they're saying it back to you. But when they got sold on the landing page or the, you know, in the person's videos, they're all, you know, they're all gung ho.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. Like talking to them in person, I would say something I do myself is like, okay, I'm gonna listen to a bunch of this person's stuff before I, you know, really see them as someone I could trust their information.
Yeah. Yeah, getting a bunch of different perspectives. And ideally, you'd want to hear their perspectives on a ton of different things, like not just, you know, if
Their
they're,
expertise.
yeah, if just say they're just say they're a fitness instructor and they sell a like, I don't know, package on building lean muscle and losing fat, or like, I don't know, getting six pack or something. Yeah, you should ask them or hear their perspective on diet, hear their perspective on relationship or communication, or what are their tools to create discipline and habits, what kind of water do they drink, because yeah, it's in the realm of health. You want to hear more about, yeah, do they have a good reputation, do they show up to your appointments on time, do they follow through, do they genuinely care about their clients. I think all of these pieces are so key, because we're all whole, we have wholeness in our entire life, we're all human.
I think
so
the best way to avoid being taken advantage of from someone who is in the story gap, grifting or whatever it might be, is being in your, you know, warrior king archetype,
yeah,
and being knowledgeable for yourself.
yeah,
Because
so that you don't get swayed by it.
Because I see stuff every
Yeah.
day, and we see stuff every day with our Instagram.
Yeah.
It's bombarded with business coach ads, and it's like, okay, because we had a business coach who taught us so much of this stuff. Now we see it in the ads that we're getting. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, we don't need to take your business thing because we already know that stuff, and we didn't have to pay tens of thousands of dollars, or, you know, sign up for their $5,000, or I'll get you, you know, to $100,000 in a year. Like, we don't get taken advantage by that stuff because we made ourselves knowledgeable about that.
A big one too is making sure that you're not going into things into your life from a place of fear, because people who know that tactic and that tactic works of instilling fear to sell something,
I think
you really need to watch, so you can check yourself.
If people think
fear and scarcity,
if you think is not you, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Because like fear sells so good
Yeah.
in the health, the survival, the gardening, homestead, the preparedness. Like, how many people when COVID happened bought a bunch of toilet paper or stocked up on canned food
or first aid kits,
got
or
masks, or yeah, like just loaded up on hand sanitizer, all this thing. Like, how many people, you know, and I'm guilty of it too. Like, bought a bunch more canned food and stuff. Like,
I bought some survival stuff,
you know,
for
it's
sure
like
too.
definitely like.
But I didn't buy something that I wasn't gonna use regardless.
But that's still not.
We were still acting from.
You know, someone buys 100 acres somewhere because they're like, we gotta get out of the city. Yeah. That's okay. Like, you can still use it. Yeah. You know, but yeah, so like we all do it, just noticing that you're not, you know, like, oh my god, like my car's making a noise. I better buy a new car. Like, I just don't even know. It's like, oh, it's a $50 part. You know, would have been fixed in a day, and then now you're, you know, 100 grand in debt. And you bought a new car. You know, it's like little things like that. But yeah, definitely not reacting from a place of fear. That's a good point.
And I think another one too, which is, you know, for a vision quest, for example, we don't just say yes to everyone, because
We
it
have
could,
to vet people. Yeah.
we have to meet you. So, you know, we talk, we book a call with everyone that is interested in the vision quest. And I think it's super key, because if someone comes in and they're not a good fit for us, we don't want your money. We don't want you in our circle. Like,
You're not worth the headache.
yeah, because we've definitely interacted with people in the past that were not a good fit, and we said yes too easily, rather than really checking in with ourselves to see if they were a good fit for our program.
Some people aren't ready.
Yeah, that's just the reality of it. And so we vet people through a call to make sure that it's a good fit for everyone, and also a good fit for the particular experience, because maybe someone, is interested in the vision quest, but maybe another program's actually a better fit for where they are in their life right now.
And if you're attending a vision quest with us, it doesn't take us long to spot things in people. Like, you might come in with a character, it might take an hour for us to pick out the things we're like, yeah, that ain't true, that ain't right. Like, you could pretend and act in all this different ways, but like, it'll come through so fast. And when you're with someone for 10 days, like, good luck trying to hide a thing from, people who, like, we're there trying to assist these people in growth, and trying to help you have something beautiful unfold in yourself. So we're looking for those little nuances, those little ticks, those little lies that you're telling yourself, that the group, like, we can see the story gap in you as you're there, because you might be like, oh yeah, like, no, that's not a problem. It's not a problem. It's like, yeah, you just told us it was a problem, but now you're saying it's not a problem. And like, these things will bleed through there. You can't hide it.
You can't hide it. Yeah. And I think maybe we'll close off with that. This is like an expression about, you'll know the essence of a tea when it's boiled in hot water. So when you find yourself in those stressful situations, in those situations that are like intense, well, how do you react? That is your true nature. That's when everything else kind of strips, because you can't even think about it or process it when you're in that intensity. And so your true nature just automatically comes up.
I know you want to close it, but we can't.
Why? You have something else to say?
Well, because we didn't go back to what happens when you're in the story gap.
Oh yeah, okay, we can close with that.
And I think so. I think I want to start with my example. So I knew I was in this story gap, but what could I do about it? And ultimately, you're in control. So the ultimate argument would be like, hey, you quit your job and you do whatever it takes to make money and moving toward your dream or goal. But sometimes it's not that easy. You have family or kids or people depending on you, or you have loads of debt. So like, you have to be strategic. But if you don't do that, something eventually is going to creep up, like we said, like a disease, a sickness, maybe like, mental breakdown, bad decisions. You might like end up with an addiction to something to cope with this story gap. Maybe you need to have alcohol all the time because you can't be with yourself. You're discussing with you. Maybe it's cannabis. Maybe it's, ayahuasca trips. Maybe it's, maybe it's supplements. Maybe it's something that should be becoming a crutch for you. And then, forgot where I was going to go with that, but yeah, so that's one way it can display itself. That's not just a disease. It can become this coping mechanism that you have, and maybe it's exercise. Maybe you might end up in a bad relationship. You might end up with that. You might end up with a person and having kids and a family because you were in this story gap and you didn't fight to get out of it and chase the thing that you truly wanted over here, and then you just let it dig you deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper over here. So that you can end up in a terrible relationship, divorce, like losing your friends, getting new friends that aren't helpful, like all these different things can arise from just having that gap. And I think, like, how would you remedy that?
Well, this is where the full body yes and full body no is. If you understand what brings you joy, what brings you happiness, what is in alignment with who you are again at that moment in time, because it changes, it truly changes, and you're allowed to change, you're allowed to evolve, you're allowed to become different personas. Like, that's the beauty of this place in our human experience. But when we're in a place where it's a no, and your body's like, hey, that actually doesn't feel good anymore, if you keep doing those things when your body's telling you no, that's the remedy. The remedy is knowing, okay, this doesn't feel good anymore, I'm going to stop doing it.
But like
But the story gap is when you keep doing the things that you don't want to do
but
anymore.
even with you, like as you step into the birth work and
Yeah.
and DC and stuff, it's like that this space, let's say this is where you want to land,
Yeah.
and this is where you started, when the story gap's over here,
Yeah.
this ain't easy.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's hard. Yeah.
How many shitty days, stressed out weeks, weekends where we're working, we're hustling, we're freaking tired or exhausted because we're trying to get to this result we want because we don't want to be in the story gap.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's okay. Like, so an example.
People have to accept that there's gonna be a struggle. It's gonna be hard work. It's gonna take a lot of effort.
Discipline.
Effort. You're gonna have to find your why.
Yeah.
You have to nail down your dream goal or objective for your North Star. Because if you don't know where you're going, any road's gonna get you there.
But here's an example. So I'll just go back to that. So a story gap for me is or both of us, we're trying to build businesses, right? So we can stop doing the things that no longer fuel us. And we're trying to create a legacy. We have really big dreams of homesteading with animals and wanting to still be of service for our community in good ways, but honoring, our time now with growing a family and how things look different. Finances look different when, we're planning to have multiple kids, and really being honest with that and working towards that. So when I do something that's out of a story gap, or that's in a story gap for me, would be
alignment with what your North Star is.
Yeah, but if I know it's towards that North Star, I actually don't see it as a story gap. So an example, we've had nights over the winter, the sun would set. Normally we'd probably just, hang out, veg out, like, I don't know, stretch, be by the fire, like really chill, and then go to bed early. But there were nights over the last winter where I was putting those, blue blocker glasses on, and I was like,
we're building a website.
Yeah, we're working on funnels, and we were building programs, and I was on my computer.
Do we want to be building websites?
No.
Do we want to be on the computer?
Late at night? No.
Yeah.
I all these things are straight up no's, but when I knew we were working towards that larger North Star, that larger vision, it actually wasn't a story gap. I was choosing to do those things, but it's all like with context. There's always nuance.
That's trying to get away from your story gap, because your story gap would be, we're stuck where we are or taking steps back. But to be where we want to be, we have to move there. And I think of, I had to find a new job and fail at some, and I quit that, and I'm going to try this new career or this job at this one place. It doesn't work out. It's like, okay, shit, I'll go back to being a mechanic, opportunity. Okay, I'm going to go try this now, because it's like I didn't give up on that, trying to close that story gap. Like I left and went to a fitness store and was going to repair their fitness equipment. And that place didn't work. I was like, okay, shit, I gotta go back to the drawing board, go back to being a mechanic, know where the money is, I'm safe here. It's like, this is neutral. Okay, like, boom, get this new job. Okay, this is like, just step that, close that gap just a bit more. Okay, like now I gotta find a way here. Oh, I'm gonna take some training. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Like, okay, now I can close that gap a little bit more. So it's not a linear path. Yeah. It's a freaking roller coaster.
Spiral. Yeah.
Spirals down, then it spirals up again, and then down.
So I guess checking in with yourself. Questions, I guess, to leave with listeners would be checking in with yourself. Where are story gaps in your life?
Yeah, where are you living a story gap? Are you living a story gap?
What are your dreams?
Yeah.
If you can, work towards your most authentic embodiment right now, what's in the way? What is not working, what brings you alive, and keep working towards that.
Yeah, are you herbal Tina online, but then you're drunk Shaniqua like behind closed doors? You're like, you got to see these things for what they are, and then realize like, okay, like, am I playing this spiritual person? And like, but my life's fucking chaos. I can't pay the bills. I need someone give me somewhere to live. I need help. And then coming to terms with it, because the lying to ourselves is where the story gap can grow.
Yeah.
So yeah, coming to terms, and then is finding your North Star. So you have something to aim toward, and then setting goals, and then coming up with a plan. And you might fail over and over and over and over, but if you're failing toward your dream, it's always better than failing toward your nightmare.
Well, thanks for listening, and reach out as always if you have any questions.
Hope you liked it.